welcome or welcome back to the Recreateful channel. My name's Divia, and in today's video I would like to show you how I recreated this gorgeous dress that Bella Hadid wore to Fashion Week in Paris. I came across this dress on my Instagram, and when I saw it I just thought this is the most gorgeous dress I've ever seen, and regardless of not having an occasion to wear it to, I just have to DIY it. I also just want to say a quick disclaimer, I'm entirely self-taught. I have been sewing for the last 9 to 10 months and I have got no formal qualification whatsoever, so some of this footage might be aggravating to the professionals out there. I know that I'm not always using the real methods or the way you should be doing it. I just do whatever works for me. However, I am open to constructive feedback in the comments, so please share your knowledge with me if you feel like it. That's all I wanted to say. Now let me show you how I DIY'd this beautiful dress. First of all, I'm sketching out the different patterns I will be needing for this DIY. I am always just roughly guessing the patterns from looking at the original. And this is what I came up with. I then take some paper and hold it up to myself and roughly mark the fit of the front piece of the dress. Once I have got the rough dimensions of the front piece, I lay my pattern flat and use my pattern rulers to even out the sketch. For the bottom of the front, I'm simplifying the pattern slightly as the original shape requires more fabric than I had available. Once I was happy with the pattern, I made sure that both sides are equal and therefore adjusted one side slightly. I then copied the neck and waistline onto more paper to create the back piece, however I adjusted the bust curves to be flat. I also made this pattern piece much longer for the train of the dress, and I also made it flare out further. Once I was happy with one side, I mirrored the same drawing to the other side. I also adjusted the train to be a steeper curve. As I want to insert a zipper into the back, I cut my back pattern into half. Next, I took my waist and bust measurement to create the side piece. I placed my pattern pieces together to measure their combined width around the waist and the bust. I then used more paper to create the side pattern piece. I subtracted the pattern width of my body measurements and halved the remainder as I will need 2 side pieces. I'm using the front and back piece to sketch out the side piece, making sure I make it wide enough to match my body's measurements. I also make sure to create a curve for the bust. These were the 4 pattern pieces I ended up with. I placed them onto some lining fabric and traced them onto it with around 2 cm seam allowance. I cut all of my lining pieces out once, besides the side piece, which I cut out twice. These were my 5 lining pieces. Next, I'm attaching them into one strip by sewing all pieces right sides together, which then looked like this. Now I moved on to the outer fabric and materials, which are these 3 meter of satin, 1 meter of chiffon and one 23-inch zipper. I traced my pattern pieces onto the satin with 2 cm seam allowance and then cut them out. I decided to go for this very saturated blue instead of the pink, just to see how the dress would look like in another color. I repeat the same step like I did with the lining to attach them all together. For the 3 strips of satin at the side of the dress, I'm measuring the length from the bottom front to the beginning of the train at the back. In my case, that was 2 meters and 40 centimeters long. I used this piece of wood to draw straight lines onto my satin. I cut 6 strips in total, however I did not have enough fabric to cut them all at the same length. I decided to make the thinner strips shorter than the wider strips. Because I will have to fold them in half, I cut the thinnest to be 12 cm wide, the middle one to be 16 cm wide and the widest one to be 20 cm wide. Once I had them all cut out, I ended up with these pieces. I folded all of them into half and sew a curve along the edges, cut off the excess fabric, and then I had this nice finish. Next, I ironed them along the fold so that they would look nice and crisp. These were my finished side strips. Next, I cut some fusible interfacing to give the strips a little more structure. I ironed one piece into every side strip. I then attached all 3 strips together with one stitch along the edge. I also cut out these pieces, attached the top pieces together like before and sewn them onto my lining pieces. I do this so that the lining wouldn't be visible when I wear the dress. I made sure to fold over the bottom before attaching it to the lining so that it won't fray. Now I was able to assemble the dress. I placed the side strips onto my lining piece and placed the outer fabric right sides onto both and pinned the strips, lining and outer pieces together. I then sew all along the edge. I also sew along the neckline of the dress as well as the bottom of the front pieces. Next, I continue to attach the strips to the dress by sandwiching them between the back lining and outer piece and also sew along that edge. I basically sew the whole leg opening of the dress closed. Once I completed this, I turned my piece right sides out and I had this. Now it was time to attach the chiffon to the leg opening. I used some paper to trace the shape of my leg opening. I cut my chiffon to the shape of the opening with some seam allowance. I then hemmed the bottom of that piece with the smallest rolled hem possible. To attach the chiffon onto the dress, I fold over the 2 small strips and place the chiffon onto the widest strip, roll the raw edge in and sew along the whole piece, which then ended up looking like this. I cut 4 strips of interfacing to the same length of my zipper and ironed them into the back opening of my dress for more stability once the zipper is attached. Next, I fold in the raw edges of the back opening and place the zipper in between. I do this on both sides and attach the zipper to the dress. The zipper ended up looking like this. Lastly, I sew the back and train closed and finished is my recreation. And here is the final outcome. I honestly cannot believe how well this turned out. This was definitely my biggest project so far and I had so much fun with it. Like I said before, I really don't think I'll ever get to wear it out, however I just wanted to DIY something other than lockdown attire. I feel like I came very close to the look of the original, although I do see a few errors and mistakes of course. Thank you so much for watching.